urge leaders to keep up the ambition of limiting global warming.
I'm proud that the UK has now enshrined in law our world-leading net zero commitment.
Green is good. Green is right.
We're confident we're on track to deliver net zero.
14 years of Tory rule, 14 years of commitment to tackling climate change. But Kemi Badenoch had already signalled a different approach earlier in the year when she said it would be impossible to reach net zero by 2050. She's now pledged to remove all climate targets for oil and gas drilling if elected.
There is a real danger that all we're going to do in pursuing the 2050 target is put additional costs on businesses and on families and on public services, whilst having an absolutely minimal impact on global emissions.
Successive UK governments have been obliged by law to reach our net zero target by 2050, since it was written into law by Theresa May in 2019. Labour has committed to banning new exploration of oil and gas licences and claims to have the biggest ever investment in offshore wind, as well as putting billions into carbon capture technology.
The jobs of the future will come in areas like along the coast, where we see expansion of wind farms and brilliant jobs for young people. And there was once a time when they were in government that they believed also that actually we need to, in order to maintain energy security, to build on our security and not be so dependent on the fluctuations in the fossil fuel market. We've got to invest in homegrown renewable energy.
This all comes after a record-breaking summer. The Met Office said it was almost certainly our hottest ever. Droughts have been declared across the UK, while deadly wildfires have raged across southern Europe. Opinion polling suggests climate targets remain popular with the public, but with Reform UK also pushing back on green policies, the Tories seem willing to ignore the polls and drill.
Well, a little earlier I spoke to David Whitehouse, who's Chief Executive of Offshore Energies UK, the trade association for offshore energy industry, and the environmental lawyer Tessa Khan. I put it to Tessa Khan that Kemi Badenoch's assertion that the UK should follow Norway's lead and drill for oil and gas in the North Sea is simple common sense.
There is a geological difference between what the UK can produce from the North Sea because of the nature of the part of the basin that we have access to.
Our oil is further out and a lot deeper than the Norwegians.
Well, most of it's been extracted. And also in Norway, you know, they have access to not just the North Sea, but to the Barents Sea as well, which has been subject to recent licensing attempts by Norway. But the other thing to say is that the Norwegian government, unlike the British government, has for decades been managing, and in fact very interventionist, in the way that oil and gas extraction happens, whereas the UK has been much more hands-off. And so if the Conservative Party was going to do something about this challenge, it should have been 50 years ago. But the reality now is that it is a mature basin. There's barely any gas left. We export the vast majority of the oil. So if you're looking for a solution to UK energy security, you've got to look at offshore wind in particular, because oil and gas is not the solution.
OK, so David Whitehouse, the geology is against us, reserves are against us. We haven't managed it anyway. So this Norway's doing it, we must, is nonsense.
So the geology in the UK and Norway is the same. So let's be clear. We all recognise we need to deal with emissions and that path to net zero. Today, though, 75% of our energy in the UK comes from oil and gas. We have forecast. There are forecasts that say that the UK will need between 10 and 15 billion barrels of oil and gas between now and 2050. And we're on target to produce just 4 of that, less than a third. And with supportive policy, the basin could produce almost half of that demand. And what does that mean? That means we support jobs, we support real value in our economy. That adds over £150 billion to our economy. I think that is important. It supports some of the very companies that we need for that broader energy transition. And it all comes with a lower carbon footprint than importing. So the choice we have as a country, we recognise we will need oil and gas. We recognise we need to build out at pace our world-class renewables. And our choice is, do we support homegrown energy? Do we support our jobs? Do we support our own economy? Or do we choose to sacrifice all of that and rely on imports?
Right, Tessa Khan, we are going, therefore, to need oil and gas, which everybody agrees, for a long time to come. It is better for the planet to get our stuff out of the North Sea than import it.
So that's manifestly untrue insofar as when the oil and gas industry makes that argument, they are looking at the dirtiest kind of import into the UK, which is LNG. rather than the source of most of our gas imports, which is Norwegian gas, which is actually cleaner than what we produce here, because here in the UK, we continue to use outdated practices like flaring. And in fact, other attempts by the North Sea oil and gas industry to clean up their act are failing. And what's totally clear is that if we're going to stay within a safe climate, burning the oil and gas in existing fields would take us well past safe climate limits. So we can't afford to be adding massive new oil fields like the Rosebank oil field to that already unburnable oil and gas.
But Kemi Badenoch is saying very clearly we need to bring our gas bills down, our energy bills down. So does the government. The way to do that, surely, is to use oil and gas reserves, which we will need, which are within our grasp and close by. That's
So the first
obvious.
thing to say is that if you're concerned about energy bills, the thing that sent our household energy bills skyrocketing in 2022, it is our dependency on gas and the fact that that is a volatile commodity that we will never be able to control the price of because we don't produce enough of it. What we need is more investment by the UK government in domestic manufacturing, more incentivisation of offshore wind companies to build their kit here. But more oil and gas is not going to make a difference, given more oil and gas has happened while we've seen those jobs decline.
David Whitehouse?
What happens is people are not looking to those who work in our industrial communities, in our industrial heartlands, here in Aberdeen, but in Humberside, Teesside, across the country. What we need is for politicians and policymakers to come and speak to those who work in the sector. The argument that we make is, yes, we're on this journey together, but you need to do it with us and not to us.
Let me, bearing that in mind, put one comment today from Kemi Badenoch. She says we need, quote, all our oil and gas from the North Sea. That isn't possible, is it?
I think what we need to try to do is maximise the amount of oil and gas that we produce ourselves and maximise the opportunities for jobs, value in our economy, and do that.
That's not what I'm asking, David. That's what I'm asking. I'm asking, is it possible, what she is saying, that we can get all our oil and gas from the North Sea?
In terms of meeting that total demand, no. I think what we recognise is between 10 and 15 billion barrels the UK will need. I think with supportive policy, we can meet, I think, at least half of that demand, and we're not on track to do that. But it's so important that we make sure that we are providing sufficient oil and gas to meet as much of our need as possible.
Tessa Khan, David Whitehouse, thanks very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.